Welcome back. This is going to be part 102 of my presentation on the flood and Noah's Ark. And in this one here, we're going to continue on with the animals that went on the ark. And in the last video, we were discussing or distinguishing between kinds and species or variety. And I used the elephants here. Matter of fact, as a good example, you got the elephant kind. This is the elephant kind. But you have a variety. You have a variety of the elephant kind. This is a variety. This would be considered species. You would consider these two to be different species of the same kind of animal, which is the elephant kind. Just for simplistic purposes, I don't know if that's the technical word for it, but I'm just going to say the elephant kind. When you look at these animals, anybody can tell that they are the same kind of animal. And so, except for evolutionists. But at any rate, in this one here, we're going to go a little bit deeper. I'm kind of rabbit trailing just a little bit, even though we're on this same topic. But there's a purpose for it, guys. I'm trying to get a point across, because there's a lot of folks that believe that the animals that we have today, all the different varieties of animals, let's just say you've got the dog kind or the canine kind, which would have wolves and domesticated dogs and all that, any breed of the canines that we're talking about. They believe that all the varieties that we have, Noah had to take two of each to put on the ark. And because of that, folks are saying, well, he couldn't have done it. There's no way he could fit all those animals on the ark, and see it's not true, and say the story's not true, the Bible's not true, it's all just a bunch of myths and it's hogwash. Well, they're basing this this thought on a false foundation. The Bible distinctively says kind. That changes everything. Because you've got the dog kind or the canine kind. You've got the elephant kind, the cat kind, and then go on and on and on and on. However, because what they're noticing, the evolutionists and creationists, what they're seeing is that animals they didn't think could come together and reproduce are, especially in birds. They're seeing some just amazing thing in birds. And so now, are there some limitations? Yes, there is, and mutations are causing a lot of that. Mutations in the DNA, but it's not making a new animal. If anything, it's hurting the animal. Just like we're building up mutations right now. And it is believed and has been estimated that if we were to be on this planet even 50,000 years, the human race would be extinct. Would be extinct by then because of the mutations in the DNA. And so so there is a distinction between the variation or which we would call species. Anytime you think of species, just think of variety. Take the canine, two dogs that came off of, or the dog kind, which you could say, let's just say two wolves for the simplicity. And then all the dogs came from those two dogs. Believe it or not, guys, that's exactly what happened. Now, what did the two dogs or the wolves or whatever that came off the ark, what did they look like? We don't know. But I can assure you that they were much different than what we're seeing now. And so, but we don't know. It's all speculation. And so what did the original elephant look like when it came off the ark? It was probably a whole lot more robust than this one right here. And so it very well could look more like this. And then through the breeding and the variations that came out, you had some that would lose different type of physical characteristics. And then of course the mammoth went extinct, and then, and we talked about the mammoths before. If you guys want to go look back on the mammoths, we talked about the mammoths. Were they made for cold? Were they not made for cold? Where they may have their chance to study them because they are attempting to clone that animal from an Asian elephant. They're going to actually use an Asian elephant to do it. And they just may succeed, guys. But you know what? For them to do that, what do both of those animals have to be? They have to be the same kind. They have to be the same kind. And so, it's very simple. And the Bible specifically says that. Kind. You are to take the kinds, different kinds of animals. And so that shortens the amount of animals that are to be on the ark. And so now there was an error a long time ago that the church believed. We're going to go through some of that right now. And so, and that has kind of, that permeated a belief system through the church, and Darwin had his chance to prove them wrong. And so that gave him more credibility, I guess you could say, even though what he believed was completely false. And so, but he corrected what the church was teaching. And because of that, it said, well, you know what? Maybe what he's saying is true. It got people, it started that little path, that rabbit trail off of that. And so, but let's look at that right now. Now, what I did, guys, I've went through the information on evolution just to kind of, at least I believed it was a summation showing the three knuckleheads that really got the thing started, Lyell, Hutton, and Darwin. And so in my dinosaurs and man presentation, right before I went into the dinosaur and man tracks that were found, I went through this material. And so if you want to go through that, go back to my dinosaur and man presentation and go towards the end, and you will see where I bring up this information here. But I took portions of that, of those slides, and I'm showing you here because I want you guys to see what I'm talking about when we're talking about a variety or species, and then you have the kind of animal. And I will say this, that the people that are saying that you couldn't fit all the two of every animal on the planet, except the water animals, you couldn't fit all the animals on the ark. They are correct. They are correct, but they're building that idea on a faulty foundation. And so the Bible didn't say to bring the variety, all the different varieties of animals. He said to bring the kind, and there's more to that. We're going to talk about much, hopefully maybe within the next, maybe the next video. And so, but going on here, it says, during this time, there was a common teaching in the church referred to as the fixity of the species. The fixity of the species. That's what was taught in churches, which is the belief that all species, now anytime you see species, guys, think of varieties. The varieties is what I'm talking about. You got the dog kind and all the varieties, anything that is considered a dog. They can come together and produce offspring. They are the same kind, but all the different varieties, you would consider them species. Okay, that all the species were created as they appear in the present. So what they thought of is that take the cat, all the different varieties of cat, and God created each individual variety as that animal. And so that is incorrect. That is not what he did. But Darwin correctly doubted this and provided support that the speciation was a natural process by which the animal populations with desired traits survived better in given environments. He then took this belief a huge step further to incorrectly believe that through these small changes over time, an animal could change or evolve from one kind of animal into a completely different animal. This basic meaning of the word evolution is gradual change over time. Darwin became more and more convinced that life evolved from a common ancestor, which he's saying that everybody, animals, insects, humans, we're all descended from a common ancestor. And so we're all connected. And so, which is hogwash, absolutely hogwash. Now, one of the things you'll see when they start talking about Darwin and evolution, they always bring up these stupid finches. They always bring up these finches. The Galapagos finches are a classic example of adaptive radiation. Now, what that means is it's that adaptive radiation means a divergence out from a central point in a particular evolution from an ancestral animal or plant group into a variety of new forms. And so, which that chart is showing there. But at any rate, their common ancestor arrived on the islands a few million years ago. Since then, a single species has evolved into different species that are adapted to fill different lifestyles. 14 species of Galapagos finches that evolved from a common ancestor, the different shapes of their bills suited to different diets and habitats show the process of adaptive radiation, is what they're saying. And so this is the thing, guys, you got to understand. All these finches, look at the names of them in that circle. Large tree finch, mangrove finch, woodpecker finch, warbler finch, Cocos Island finch, small ground finch, medium ground finch, large ground finch, sharp-beaked ground finch, cactus finch, large cactus finch, vegetarian finch, small tree finch. All these finches, guys, guess what? They're finches. They're finches. But you know what they are? They're birds. They're birds. And you know what that ancestral seed-eating ground finch was? That's supposed to be in the middle? It's a bird. It's a bird. You didn't get no new animal from this. All this is a variety of the same animal. It's the same animal. It's a bird. It's a bird. That's all it is. It's a bird. And you got all these varieties from that bird, from that one finch. Now, he's talking about millions of years and stuff, but a 2017 study found that a new species variety of finches, a new species of finches formed in just 2 generations. Just 2 generations. So it does not take millions of years or a long time for this to happen. It really doesn't. Now, there's another thought that is called punctuated equilibrium. Punctuated equilibrium. And so I'm going to, real quick, I'm going to go over this. I'm not going to go in really deep detail into it, but just enough where if you guys ever hear this, this is pretty much what they're stating. It was introduced by Stephen Jay Gould and Niles Eldredge in 1972. The theory is based on rapid changes to produce new species followed by long times of no change, what they consider to be stasis. They call that stasis. Darwin proposed gradual changes over long periods of time. And so this punctuated equilibrium would be shorter time frames where quick changes would happen. And so, sometimes they use this as an excuse because while there's no, we don't find fossils of transitional fossils and stuff like that. Well, they're saying, instead of long periods of time of changes, maybe it was because it was short changes, and that's the reason they call it punctuated equilibrium. Now, the definition of species in Webster's 20th Dictionary, 1935, says a group of animals or plants which generally bear a close resemblance to each other in the more essential features of their organization, which produce fertile progeny, and which may, in the generality of cases, produce individuals varying from the general type of the group. The variation, however, being in all cases a limited kind. That is a correct definition of species. That is exactly what it is. These different varieties can come together and produce offspring. And so now what science has understood is, when we're going to talk about it later, is you've got these different species of animals that they didn't think could come together and produce offspring, and they are, and they call them hybrids. They call them hybrids, and I'll show you some examples of hybrids later. But again, you got punctuated equilibrium versus gradualism. And so both of them are going to produce the same thing. So you got birds here. If it was a quick change or a gradual change, you have the same thing. You have a bird in the beginning and you have a bird in the end. There has been no changes in this animal to produce a different kind of animal. What you see right here is called microevolution. Microevolution. And they use microevolution a lot to explain macroevolution, which is this change of an animal into another kind of animal. And so that's where Darwin messed up. He was correct to correct what the church was teaching, but then he took it a step further and said that that bird could become a dog. I mean, just for simplistic purposes, or they could say that dinosaurs became birds, is what they're. That's the present teaching. And so one example I'm going to show you here is the evolution of mollusk. The evolution of mollusk by using punctuated equilibrium. You got at the beginning, you got mollusk. They're living under the water just fine. And then you got the large population and the small population, this isolated population in two, has been separated. Let's just say land or whatever. Now they've been separated. So now you got the genetic pool is much shorter. So what happens is you get a change that will happen, a rapid change. Let's just say it's a rapid change. A rapid change happens in that isolated population. Their shells get elongated. They get elongated, and then you have the reintroduction of the isolated population in with the long population. That's what you got there. So now, after that, you've got stasis. So let's just say there's no change in there. The DNA is not been in such a small pool, but let's just say they start to reproduce with some of the other mollusks. So then let's just say that you get some long shells coming out in the offspring, because the dominant trait in those other mollusks was that elongated shell. That dominant trait of the long shells became dominant in those other mollusks. And so, but the thing, guys, you got to realize is that in the beginning, what do you have? You got mollusk. What do you have in the end? You got mollusk. It's the same kind of animal. You're not getting a new kind of animal to come out of this variety that has came out of this physical trait that has come out. It's not creating a new animal. It's just you got a variety of animal. The DNA for long shells was already in there. It was already in the software of those mollusks. Just like with dinosaurs, they are noticing that some of the dinosaurs that they thought was a different kind of dinosaurs are actually different stages of the same kind of dinosaur, and that there's different varieties of the same kind. And so they're learning about that. It's really amazing, because when they find a fossil, the fossil of the juvenile can look very different than the adult. Because of bone structure and stuff like that. But after it grows into an adult, they're finding that in actuality, the juvenile dinosaur they thought was a completely different dinosaur is not. It's just a different stage of the adult dinosaur as it's growing up. Now, the Bible is very clear on this, guys. It's very clear. The Bible says in 1 Corinthians 15:39, King James Version, all flesh is not the same flesh. But there is one kind of flesh of men, another flesh of beasts, another of fishes, and another of birds. You see that? Does that say anything about us having a common ancestor? If we had a common ancestor, then we would be all the same flesh. But we're not. We're different. The Bible has already got the answers in there, guys, for you. It's in there. It's in there. And it goes on. Jesus was talking in Matthew 12:33. Either make the tree good and his fruit good, or else make the tree corrupt and his fruit corrupt. For the tree is known by his fruit. You know, that you're not going to get an apple tree to produce an orange tree. It's as simple as that. If you plant an apple seed, you're going to get an apple tree out of that seed. Now, if you get an orange tree out of an apple seed, now you just got macroevolution, but you don't. You don't. You've got all different varieties of apples. All different varieties of apples. But you know what? It's an apple. It's an apple. Same thing with oranges and all different types of fruits. and vegetables and stuff like that. All right, let's stop right there. When we come back, we're going to talk about hybrids, animal hybrids. And so, but you guys take care. I love you, and I hope the Lord blesses you real good. Bye-bye.